I'm getting into deep analysis of two of the best pizzas in my area, and that's starting right now.
The two pizzas I'm highlighting today are from two highly popular spots among foodies, MARISA'S and DEFAZIO'S. Both places feature vastly different pizzas from each other and from the norm in the area. Let's jump right in and try them before getting into some detailed analysis. First up, MARISA'S place. Known for their Brooklyn-style New York City slice, it's located slightly off the beaten path in Albany, but not that far off.
So I got here to MARISA'S right as they opened, and I guess there's already a waiting list for pizzas. The time they gave me is about 25-30 minutes, which isn't really that unreasonable to wait for a pizza, especially one with such a quality of MARISA'S. Now, in doing this comparison, the one thing that I'm really excited to show you guys is the vast difference in presentation between the two pizzas. The place I'm going to right now, MARISA'S, is your classic New York style pizza. In fact, the original owner is from the same part of Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, me and my family are from. So this is the type of pizza that I kind of grew up with. Whereas the next pizza spot is a little bit of a different type of place. Each has their own merit, and we're gonna get really deep into the analysis of all that. There's a lot of history I gotta tell you about too. Alright, so like I said, worth the wait. Here we go, got my slice here. One thing I'll say about MARISA'S, they're really kind of a slice shop. When you get pies, the slices are a little bit on the smaller side, but anyway, it feels just like in line with what you get as a slice there. Let's see how it tastes. Oh yeah. If you go to Brooklyn, Bensonhurst, this is exactly what you're gonna get just about anywhere there, unless you go with a Sicilian pizza, but that's an analysis for another day. I'm gonna need to get a few shots of this pizza, and then we'll break it down back in the home studio a little bit more, just so I could show you some of the fine features of this pizza. But in terms of nice crust, crispy, and yeah, I mean, you could even hear, listen. Nice undercarriage, leaky as hell, but yes, oh, so good. MARISA'S is kind of out in the outskirts of Albany, definitely not in a city type setting. The next place we're going to is DEFAZIO'S Pizza over in Troy, and that's a little bit more of an urban setting.
Next, I'm headed to DEFAZIO'S, which is right in the Little Italy portion of Troy. Seems like a lot of construction when I visited, but I couldn't let that stop me. Alright, so next up, DEFAZIO'S Pizza. This city right here is in disarray. There's construction going on. They're replacing some concrete pavement. I don't know, I had to walk around that to actually get to the pizzeria. Super fast. I actually was surprised with all the tickets they had. They actually prioritized my pizza, and it was ready really quickly. I think less than 15 minutes. But anyway, let's get right into this. Super hot, but let's get into this. Now, I will say, as far as the circumference, pizza is the same exact size, but DEFAZIO'S is definitely thicker. Definitely on the breadier side, but let's see how it tastes. Yeah, I mean, for being a top pizza in the area, it definitely shows. There's a lot of details here that are pretty specific to this pizza, including a little bit of herbage on top and the browning on the crust. We're gonna have to get into this one too at the home studio, but this is amazing. Not perfect though. Let's get back. I got some good screenshots here, and what I'm gonna do is do some drawings and show you some of the things that are unique to both MARISA'S and DEFAZIO'S. We'll talk a little bit about the history and why I actually chose this rivalry here to compare today. And I also want to go into a little bit about how neither pizza is really representative of the area and kind of how these fit amongst everything else that's out there. One of the reasons I picked these two particular pizzerias in the area is because they kind of always float to the top of people's popularity list, and including, I'll tell you a little bit more about my experience as a judge for the Tournament of Pizza a little bit later. These guys always ended up in the finals. And I wanted to keep this comparison simple, just to show kind of a cheese pizza so that we don't go into any of the nuance of some of the other toppings that they do, because just based on the fundamentals alone, there's definitely enough going on that I can talk about here, and I'm gonna break that down right now. So prefacing with this whole thing, I don't want to get too far into the minutia as far as pizza. My philosophy is on pizza is that you like what you like. There's no bad pizza out there. I mean, sure, you can make the case for anything, but what I'm talking about today is what are the merits of the pizzas that I had at MARISA'S and at DEFAZIO'S. So let's get into it, and I'm gonna break it down starting with the price. These were identically priced. In terms of what you have there, I think if you were to compare it on a gram basis, DEFAZIO'S is probably a better value because I think you probably get more due to the fact that it's thicker. But like I said, at DEFAZIO'S, the overall circumference is the same. It's not like a wider pizza at either place for the same price. And I think it came to 17 and change after tax, so around 16 and change for each large pizza. I will say though, based on that, the slices for the 8 cut there are a little bit on the small side compared to what you get at a slice shop, but that isn't too uncommon. In terms of what's different between MARISA'S and DEFAZIO'S, there's quite a lot. The crust is probably the main difference between DEFAZIO'S pizza and anything, but especially between MARISA'S and DEFAZIO'S, and it comes down to, it is because DEFAZIO'S dough is much more of like a bread dough, and you can see that here. It gets a nice amount of rise, and it almost looks like some areas of the crust are nice and thick and puffy, like a loaf of bread. Whereas if you compare to MARISA'S, you can see that it's a lot more like a cracker style crust. You get a little rise on the crust there, but overall, it kind of just looks like your quintessential New York pizza, whereas DeFazio's looks vastly different. Another appearance area where these two pizzas differ as far as the crust goes is in the way they're baked. DeFazio's uses a wood-fired oven, and it's funny, on this visit I noticed right next to their wood oven, they also have a deck oven with like the typical brick oven, just like MARISA'S has, whereas MARISA'S just has the brick oven. Now, pizza purists will tell you that for a New York style pizza, you need a brick oven, and that's kind of where DeFazio's strays away on that, and you can see it picks up some of this char character that you would normally see in a Neapolitan pizza, and coupled with the fact that this is kind of a heavier dough, more like a bread dough instead of a pizza dough, it's definitely a unique style that DeFazio's makes that you probably can't find anywhere else. On the downside to that, in comparison with MARISA'S, because it's a classic New York style pizza, picks up that nice crust on the bottom, and you probably heard as I was biting into it, the nice crispiness that you get from that, like that crackery crust. DeFazio's doesn't get a lot of that. It's a lot softer of a crust, and that comes from the fact that it's that kind of more bread style, cooked in that wood oven. Now, this is up for debate because a lot of people kind of have their preferences. I like my New York style pizza a little bit on the more well done side, whereas DeFazio's pizza is definitely well done. You can see there's areas of the crust here that many may argue are burnt. That offers another flavor dimension that MARISA'S doesn't have, and that, depending on how you feel about it, might be a good thing or a bad thing, because it tastes like it's burnt, but that kind of smokiness with that heavier bread, you can argue is probably one of the better attributes of DeFazio's, which actually makes it stand out quite a lot, and what probably is what makes it the favorite in the area. The sauce is another thing that's kind of different between the two places. I think MARISA'S actually uses a sauce that's kind of seasoned instead of relying on adding herbs at the end, whereas it's definitely evident to me, eating the pizza nice and hot in front of DeFazio's, that sauce is probably a completely unseasoned sauce, maybe a little bit of salt in there, but there's definitely not much else going on in the actual sauce layer of the pizza. They rely on the herbs on top of the pizza in terms of supplementary flavors. I don't like to spend a whole lot of time on analyzing sauce because a lot of that kind of comes down to using the same kind of tomatoes and the way that they're using it. I would say in both cases here, it seems like DeFazio's might have applied a little more sauce than MARISA'S to kind of give you a little bit more dense of a pie, whereas MARISA'S is that typical New York style with a small amount of sauce on there. Helps to add a little bit of juiciness to the pie. Between the two places, I'll show you here that the cheese looks kind of similar, and I would probably guess that both places use a little bit of a fresh mozzarella because of the fact that when you pull the slices apart, there's a little bit of a toughness to it that you just don't achieve by using either just whole milk or part skim or a combination of those two. But now I'm kind of getting into speculation and really don't know exactly what they're using, so just let's talk about observations. The one thing that was evident at both places is these are definitely oily pizzas. MARISA'S definitely more so than DeFazio's, and that probably has to do with the fact that at MARISA'S they're probably adding a little oil at the end. I'm not exactly sure. It's been a while since I watched them actually make pizza, and their whole ordering system now, you have to actually order and then wait outside. I guess you don't have to based on what the sign says, but I did anyway, so I didn't get to see them make it. I would imagine they're adding a little extra oil to it. Given that MARISA'S is a slice shop, what probably happens that I don't experience as often is the slices on the counter here will actually have a chance to harden up a little bit, and then when the slices get rebaked, a little of the oil seeps into the oven so that it doesn't come onto the plate, whereas here it's baked, put right into the box, cut, and everything kind of stays right on top there. I tried to minimize the time in between grabbing the pizza and getting over to my car and taking a bite of each of them, so I would say MARISA'S is a little more on the oily side, whereas DeFazio's still kind of oily, but based on the fact that there's more dough and the sauce and whatever, it incorporated a little bit better with the cheese layer kind of thing. So I'm not going to really crown a winner between the two of these because I feel like both kind of have their merits, but I will say MARISA'S wins out because A, it's right near where I work. It's also easier to get because it's out in the suburbs. It is kind of a popular place still, but DeFazio's, even when I went, it was a little bit after 12 on a Friday. You could see the tickets all lined up with kind of pre-orders. I've actually heard from friends, if you order on their online portal too late on a Friday, they'll actually cancel the order on you. So it's one of those things where if you don't get in and that kind of hype kind of makes it difficult to get. That's why MARISA'S is a little more accessible to me and kind of more of what I have more often. But I love both pizzas. I think why I like DeFazio's is because it's kind of a different experience, and because it's a different experience in this area. Now going back, way back, I think maybe 12, 13 years ago, I served as a judge for the All Over Albany Tournament of Pizza, and it always came down to MARISA'S and definitely DEFAZIO'S, because both of those pizzas are definitely unique quality for this area. In this area, it's kind of interesting, and maybe on the next episode of this, we'll go into a little bit more of what the ubiquitous style for this area is. But there's actually two different styles that are kind of dominant in this area. One is the college pizza style, where it's kind of like middle of the road, you can't complain about it, but it's not great, and it's a typical New York style cooked in a brick oven. And because we have so many universities and colleges in the area, that's very common. But the other style is kind of more of a bar pizza that's usually rectangular. Sometimes the sauce comes on top, and it's cooked in a pan, so it picks up a little bit of that kind of grandma pizza vibe or Sicilian pizza, but it's definitely distinct from either the grandma style or the Sicilian style. So if that's something you want to see, make sure you hit the thumbs up on this so I know this was a good video, and subscribe so you'll see that one come up in the future. One of the things I picked on DEFAZIO'S in the past about is the Dave Portnoy review that he did, where he gave them, I think, an 8.3 or something in the 8s, where he gave MARISA'S like a 7.8 or a 7.9. I feel like that was kind of unfair, and my theory was it came down to the fact that the guy at DEFAZIO'S gave Dave Portnoy a piece of this cake. And it's funny, when I was there ordering my pizza, the guy offered me to buy the same cake, where it's some kind of, I have to read it here, Italian hangover cake, amaretto di Serrano, Grand Marnier, vodka, and orange juice. Now I'm just gonna say up front, that sounds more like a thing that would give you a hangover than actually be a hangover cure, but they make no claim on that either way, so I guess maybe I'm thinking about it too much, but it does sound really good. And I have no shortage of pizza content here in the channel. Why don't you click into this playlist right here, and it'll take you into another video with some pizza analysis.